Hello students, welcome to Legacy as Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about an interesting article which has been published in the Indian Express by a well-known international relations expert, Dr. C. Rajamohan. So in this particular article, he has talked about the challenges that India faces beyond Pakistan due to the continuous flux or change in the global order. So let us try to understand this in more detail. But first of all, to give you the background, we all know that for last few weeks, India has continuously been engaged with Pakistan as it has launched Operation Sindoor against the deadly attack carried out by the terrorists backed by Pakistan in the Pahalgam region few weeks back. Now, as a response of Operation Sindoor, Pakistan also has carried out strikes and attacks inside the Indian territory to the drones that were supplied largely by the Turkey as such. So this went on for a few days, and after that, as we know, both India and Pakistan have signed a kind or have agreed to basically, we can say, a kind of siege fire where the attack from both sides has kind of stopped as such. At the same time, during the press conference that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given, both after the conclusion of the Operation Sindoor and signing of, and basically agreeing to the ceasefire agreement, and also recently yesterday from the Adampur base of the Indian military. So there he has clearly stated that as of now, India's position on terrorism and on Pakistan is very clear. India has drawn a red line, and this red line includes that any further terror activities and terror attack within Indian territory will be considered as an act of war by the Pakistan, and also India will now no longer make any distinction between the terrorist organization or the state backing the terrorism itself. So this is a very important and significant development, and it completely changes the overall strategy India has adopted against terrorism as of now or till now. Now, as India has clearly drawn and delineated its red line against terrorism, there is also an urgent need to reinforce by intelligence and military capabilities to ensure that the red line is not crossed in the future as well. Now, also we have to be careful about an extraordinary churn that is unfolding in the global geopolitical order, and these changes that is going on not generally or necessarily with what you can call as inclusion of India, but also the changes that we are seeing between the relations of various countries. It has a great bearing on India's long-term prospect, both for the peace as well as prosperity as such. So what are the changes we are talking about? Now, at the same time, when India and Pakistan were fighting, were attacking each other's territory, at the same time, the Chinese Premier Xi Jinping, as you can see from here, attended a victory day parade in Moscow, that's the capital of Russia. This victory parade was organized on 9th of May, and Russia was celebrating the 80 years of Great Patriotic War, as it called it, or the World War II, where the Allied forces prevailed over the Axis power. So during this victory day parade, in a joint statement, both Putin and Xi has agreed that the Russia and China, they are the friends of steel. They also have criticized and they wanted to create an order that is post-American order, where the global decisions will not be made only by few superpowers, but rather it will be an alternative of post-American order. Both of them have also denounced America's dual containment of China and Russia, where they have agreed that the American policy as of now is to ensure that none of these countries, that China and Russia, grow politically, militarily, or economically as such. But that is where the interesting turn of events come. Even when they have organized, or what you can call organized a press conference, joint press conference, where they have reformed the strategic ties between China and Russia, at the same time, both countries have rushed to sign an agreement or sign some kind of deal with the United States of America. And this is what he has, or the author has referred as a triangular great power dynamic, referring to the relation between China, Russia, and United States of America. So let us first understand China and US. As we know that after coming of Trump in the power as the 47th president of the United States of America, in the early days of April, he has announced reciprocal tariffs on various countries, including China. And as a response of that, China retaliated by increasing its own tariff on the US origin goods. And thus, what followed was a chain of events where both countries kept on retaliating against each other, and the tariff rate increased to more than 150 to 160%. Now, both of these countries have lost and understand that they will incur heavy losses, because currently we talk about US-China trade volume, and value-wise it stands at about $600 billion as such. So what we are seeing is that both countries now have agreed, the representative of China and United States of America, they agreed to meet in Geneva, that is in Switzerland, and they have agreed to have a kind of siege fire of their own in what you can call as a trade war or tariff-related war. Also, they have agreed that they will bring down the massive tariff they have imposed on each other that they have unveiled earlier in this particular year, and the two sides will now negotiate a comprehensive, what we can refer as commercial peace, where the tariff rate will not be as high as it is now as such. At the same time, if you look at news coming from Russia, though Xi Jinping, that is the premier of China, and Vladimir Putin has reaffirmed their alliance as a steel-like alliance, a steel kind of alliance. At the same time, we talk about Steve Witkov is the person who has the highest number of meeting with the President Vladimir Putin in last few months. Steve Witkov is also what you can call as the golf buddy of President Donald Trump, and he is considered as the point person for US or point person for Trump, more specifically negotiating Russia-Ukraine crisis, and they also are trying to put a ceasefire-like agreement between Russia and Ukraine. So we can understand that how the global geopolitical game is being played. Though China and Russia both have met, both have agreed that they want to contain United States, but at the same time, at a slightest hint of opportunities, both countries are rushing to have their own kind of deal. They are rushing to cut their own kind of deal that would benefit each of them together. So if you try to understand, Steve Witkov is currently in Russia and he is continuously meeting with President Putin. And as a result of all these negotiations and all these meetings, what we can understand is going to take place is, for the first time after 2019, a direct meeting between the representatives of Russia and Ukraine. More precisely, there is a possibility of meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and the Putin as such. Now, this meeting is going to take place in the Istanbul, a city that lies at the boundary of both European continent as well as the Asian continent. And Turkey also is trying to get involved, or at least we can say is trying to get a slice of the great power game that is being played in the region. So if you try to understand, again, Turkey enjoys good relationship with both countries, that is Ukraine and Russia. For example, you might have read or heard about that in the early days of war, it was Turkey which supplied the Bayraktar TB2 drone to Ukraine. Now, interestingly, Turkey is also the country which has supplied drone to Pakistan because it wanted to create a front against the Saudi UAE-led hegemony, or Muslim world hegemony, we can say as of now. So, on the one hand, Turkey is supplying or has supplied Bayraktar TB2 drone to Ukraine, which has inflicted heavy losses on the Russian army. At the same time, Turkey, and more specifically the current president of Turkey, Erdogan, enjoys a very good relationship and bond with the president of Russia, Putin, as well. And that is how we can understand that Turkey has been decided and selected as a mediation ground as such. Now, apart from this, Trump also is currently on what we can call as his second Arabian tour, where he is using his, what author has written as, maverick diplomatic style as such. And also what we can understand, because Trump is trying to again include himself in the Russia-Ukraine peace talk, European Union and the European countries seem to be rattled by it, because it seems that the Trump has backstabbed them, especially after the speeches which he has given, where he had talked about that NATO, when talk about the alliance of NATO, when talk about the US role in NATO, he has said it will be minimized if all the countries do not agree to spend a desired sum of money or desired percent of GDP on it. So Europeans are now trying to become organized to prevent the US and Russia from imposing a peace on their homeland, and that is where we can also say European Union being included in this particular game. US President hopes to raise over $2 trillion in investment as far as his Saudi Arabian tour is concerned, and this, if it is possible, he can portray as a big victory for the America First policy as such. Now, apart from that, also, we know that in India, many experts and diplomats argue and understand that Trump is a transactional president. He is more of a businessman, and he believes in the policy of give and take. He believes in the policy of quid pro quo. But how transactional he is, till now, people believe that they have underestimated. Trump is thoroughly transactional as of now, or by looking at his current dealing, we can say at least that he is more transactional than he was believed to be. And how easily Trump blurs the line between personal business and state business can also be understood by looking at few examples. For example, if you talk about the Eric Trump, that is the son of Donald Trump, and the Jared Kushner, both have played a significant role in enhancing the business relations with the Arabian Kingdom. For example, Eric Trump has proposed a $5.5 billion golf project in the Qatar, and similarly a high value residential development project in the Saudi Arabia. At the same time, Qatar has announced that it will gift President Trump Boeing 747 jumbo jet, which can be used by Trump as Air Force One, and after he exits the office of president, it can go to the Trump's library as such. So here also what we can see is a general departure from the traditional US policy that it has followed in the Middle Eastern region. We know that traditionally US has always allied with the Saudi Arabia, and it has portrayed itself as a rival to the Iran. However, this is coming to a change. The Gulf Kingdom we talk about, largely Saudi Arabia, they have figured out the Trump's policy, they have figured out the Trump's transactional nature, and now they pay less attention to Trump's pronouncement and focus more on pursuing there. And this focus is not by diplomatic style, this focus is by also what you can call as using their transactional diplomacy as such. For example, the giving of gift of almost $400 million of aircraft, you can say, to Trump can be an example of transactional diplomacy. But here also you can understand that it does not mean that it reaffirms the ironclad ties that Saudi Arabia had enjoyed with US till now. Trump, from the Saudi Arabia itself, from the Riyadh itself, has given an indication and has reached out for a deal with Tehran also. He has said that if Iran gives up its nuclear ambition, then obviously Iran and US can reach a certain deal, and Iran can become a peaceful state and a prosperous state as such. And this is something that obviously Saudi Arabia would not want, because if we talk about the entire Arabian region, entire Middle East, we have two different powers, the Sunni-led Saudi Arabia and the Shia-led Iran, and they have always considered themselves as a regional competitor as well as arch rival also. Now, Tehran, notwithstanding its relentless rhetoric against the US hegemony, is also, especially under the current administration, seems to be very much eager to cut bilateral leases with Trump. And that is why even from Iran some announcement is coming that they are willing to suspend their nuclear enrichment program temporarily in the expectation of certain deals. Now, all of these events that is unfolding has also unnerved Benjamin Netanyahu, is the Prime Minister of Israel. For example, Trump's Iran outreach is being anxiously watched by the Benjamin Netanyahu. And till now, Israel was very much comfortable with the US position on the Middle East, US position and its unwavering support to Israel against the Iran, which it considered as one of the axis of evil. However, this particular policy, where it was continuously able to push Washington against Israel, now it seems to be finding hard to sell to the current president, that is Trump. An anti-Tehran line, which Benjamin Netanyahu has continuously talked about, is something that now Trump is trying to oversee. And that is why many experts argue that in the present Arabian door, traditionally talk about whenever president of US used to visit the region of Middle East, they used to always visit the Israel as well. However, in this time, Trump has decided to skip Israel, and this points to the cooling of ties, if not permanently, then at least temporarily, between Trump and Netanyahu as such. So this is the kind of flux that the author is talking about here. Now, what we can say in the conclusion, if we talk about the entire changes happening between US, China, Russia, as we know that China is most strongest ally of the Pakistan as far as the economic cooperation is concerned, as far as the defense cooperation is concerned. We actually have this downed the missile, which was actually from the Chinese, it was actually from the China. And also, if we talk about the fighter jets that Pakistan largely uses are coming from China as well. So beyond the Pakistan, we see a world that is in continuous flux. None of the traditional ideological and political signposts can explain the nature of its evolution, because today we talk about the world, it is no longer something we can classify it as a black and white, it is more of a gray nature. We do not have any permanent friends, we do not have any permanent foes. What we have is allies or alliance which can break down if any of the country feel that their interest is not being served there. So the domain knowledge and negotiating skill that has been what you can call as the skills largely in the diplomatic course that resides in the diplomatic course of each country, including India itself, we can consider are critical in navigating the current global complexities as such. And this is where India need to focus and pay its attention to. So that is all about this particular video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it to the fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to the channel for more such helpful content. Thank you very much.